Hi everyone, I am Esther, and in my project I work on improving the interaction between volunteers in a cat shelter called Cats Help in Tallinn, as well as to improve the interaction between volunteers and cats. It all started 2 years ago when I was volunteering in another shelter. I saw that it was crammed with cats, and not only cats but also volunteers are also very stressful. So I was thinking, can design help with alleviating the overcrowding issue in a cat shelter? Since this topic is quite broad, I started with talking to stakeholders in this field, such as shelter personnel and foster parents. And from the interviews with 2 foster dads and 2 shelter personnel, volunteers and foster parents are very important. It's because they are not only helping with the operation of the shelter, but also with socializing with cats. When the cats become more friendly, they will have a higher chance to find a permanent home. And also there's always a problem of shortage of volunteers. In addition, volunteers can be the future foster parents or even adopters. It's because many foster parents will end up adopting their foster cats, as they have already created the bond with the cats. So from the expert interviews, I see the significance of volunteers. Therefore, I further narrow down my focus to volunteers. I started volunteering at Cats Help in July 2024. Since then, I decided to use this shelter as a case study. When I shared this idea with some of the senior volunteers, they immediately mentioned that volunteers shortage is a consistent issue. So at this point, I narrowed down my focus to recruit and retain volunteers for Cats Help for my degree project. I used the double diamond framework to guide me through the whole process. I went through the first diamond twice to narrow down the focus. As mentioned, in the first diamond, I did interviews and research with the focus of alleviate the overcrowding issue in a cat shelter. And after I narrowed down the focus to recruit and retain volunteers for Cats Help, I did another round of research for that in the second diamond. And from the insights that I got from the previous diamond, like this diamond, I narrowed down the focus to design an onboarding program for Cats Help's new volunteers and work on the ideation on the third diamond. Lastly, I refined my focus to designing a communication system within Cats Help and foster human-cats interaction. I used 3 methodologies to do the research in this project. The first one is autoethnography research method. I used my first-hand experience as a volunteer at Cats Help in the design process. I also used the ethnography research method mainly during the discover stage. I want to see people's opinion about volunteering in a cat shelter or why they drop out. And the last one is participatory action research method. The methods that I used under PAR include observation, interviews, and questionnaire. So with the focus of recruit and retain volunteers for Cats Help, I reached out to Facebook expats groups to find out the characteristics of potential volunteers, what is the best channel to communicate with potential volunteers, and why people quit, and how to prevent this from happening. I want to ask these questions to know how to recruit volunteers. While asking people on Facebook is to understand how to recruit volunteers, to understand the internal factors that may lead to drop out and how to possibly retain them, I distributed anonymous questionnaires within Cats Help's volunteers. I want to know if there's anything demotivating which can be the potential reasons for them to quit, and what make them stay with us. And from the insights gathered from the Facebook Express group, I saw that volunteers are mostly cat lovers. And Sometimes people quit because of personal plans, say they move to another apartment and it's too far away from the shelter they was volunteering and then they don't have time anymore. Or they have kids, or they adopted their own cats. And also, some people indicated that, especially for people who have limited contact with cats, they may feel intimidated to contact shelters by unclear tasks because they don't know, even though they want to hang out with cats, but what are you expecting me to do as a volunteer in a cat shelter? And from the results of the anonymous questionnaire, I learned that it's difficult for a new volunteer to cope with all the information at first. And they have to learn and understand a lot by themselves because nobody explained anything to them. So from the takeaways in the discover stage, I decided to narrow down the focus to retain volunteers for Cats Helps. It's because even though we can recruit a lot of new volunteers, but if the internal system is too messy, people will leave eventually. And when they left, they may not come back. And the target group is quite niche, so it may be hard to find new joiners to replace them. And we can't lose any volunteers now because it's summer and people usually being out of town, and it's also the kitten seasons. And I also want to solve a Cats Helps specific problem. I believe that new volunteers need clear work process and easy access to information because they often feel lost or unsure of tasks. Therefore, an onboarding program is needed. According to a questionnaire response, the first contact has to be comfortable and enjoyable to make you want to come back. Based on my previous research, I came up with several design principles to guide me through the ideation. The first one is empower volunteering through clear communication, easy tag, low cost, high impact, continuous iteration, and for humans and cats. And the how might we question is, how might we design an onboarding program for Cats Helps new volunteers that clarifies the work process and provides clearer access to information? I brought this how might we question with me to the ideation stage and organized a co-design workshop with 6 volunteers in the shelter. In the workshop, volunteers needed to map out their journey during their shifts, as well as to indicate the support behind them at each stage. I want to know the pain points that volunteers are facing. And one of the biggest takeaways from the workshop is I learned that there's no guidelines for volunteers. This is causing confusions to volunteers, especially the new one. And they also ask, do we have protocol? Actually, we have, but we will get back to this later. Other takeaways from this workshop include the support system behind the stage consists mostly of 1 or 2 specific volunteers. And although volunteers mentioned that we shouldn't rely too much on certain volunteers during the workshop, I kept hearing things like, I need someone to guide me, and we should have a mentorship program. After all, volunteers stay with us not only because of the cats, but also because of the sense of community. After the workshop, I found that the need for clarity of work process and clear access to information is not limited to new volunteers, but everyone. Sometimes only certain volunteers know the important information, and it's failed to be delivered to everyone, or the information was left unseen in chat groups. Therefore, instead of designing an onboarding program only for new volunteers, Cats Help needs a better communication system among its volunteers. Apart from that, the ultimate goal of helping volunteers to have a better communication is to reduce frictions during their shift so that they can save time to socialize with cats and have a higher chance for them to find a permanent home. So I refined the how might we from designing an onboarding program to designing a system that helps all levels of volunteers to navigate the work process and access information and also maximize their time to interact with cats. During the workshop, I heard some keywords from the volunteers like operation manual, checklist, mentorship. I planned to do crazy iterations with volunteers after the journey mapping exercise, but since the workshop was overrun, so I brought these keywords with me to do the ideation. And the first thing I did during the prototyping stage is to redesign their task list. During the workshop, volunteers were asking, do we have a protocol? Indeed, we have, but not everyone paid attention to it. It's important to have clear guidelines for volunteers, as Volunteer Gates, the largest information portal in Estonia that focuses on volunteer activities, mentioned that volunteers' area of responsibility and assignments should be done in writing to avoid misunderstandings. I break down the task list into different sessions and placed it into related areas. For example, if it's related to washing the water fountain, then related instructions will be placed close to the drinking area for the cats. And if it's related to cleaning the sandbox, then related instructions will be placed close to the bathroom area. And I asked for feedback, and they are quite positive because it really reminds them their task, but they would also like to know where to find the supplies for the tasks. And other volunteers are also adopting this idea to communicate with each other to ensure that essential information is being seen instead of leaving it unseen in the chat group. For example, what particular food we should feed for a specific cat, what's the temperament of a specific cat. It helps us to know how to approach the cats in the first place. So apart from cleaning, playing with cats is also volunteers' major task. The more we hang out with them, the more they get used to humans' presence, and they will have a higher chance to find a home. But how to interact with cats? Or do cats really want to interact with us? Actually, they do, but we need to know how. So on the other day, a volunteer told me that this cat toy is very popular among cats. Another volunteer showed me that cats love laser ball pen. So I was thinking, if we have different ideas to interact with cats, why don't we share them so that we will know how to interact with cats, especially for new volunteers and visitors. And in this case, volunteers and cats can have an enjoyable time, and the volunteering experience can be improved. So inspired by the cats and other volunteers, I came up with the idea of using this shelter's whiteboard as a cat interaction idea bank. Although I shared this idea with several volunteers and their response were good idea, but no one was sharing their ideas. And then I asked for feedback, and some volunteers say, I am so tired after all the cleaning and I don't want to contribute anymore. Or I usually just pick out their favorite toys and give them to the guests by myself. Or I thought these whiteboards are not supposed to do something else apart from writing medical appointments for the cats or any other appointments. So from the feedback, it seems there's not enough motivation for volunteers to share their cat interaction ideas, as they prefer not to do something extra after their cleaning task. Also, this is not the most suitable tools to do to serve as an interaction idea bank. I decided not to force people to share their cat interaction ideas, but to take a step back first by using a nudging approach. It's because with this approach, volunteers won't need too many efforts to hang out with the cats. To start the prototyping, another volunteer and I tested with the cats in the shelter to see which toys are more popular among them. And then we gathered cats' favorite toys in one place in this container with a prompt showing that here are cats' favorite toys. You can use them to play with the cats. And so now what volunteers need to do now is just to put the cats' favorite toys back in this container. And I asked for feedback again. This time, a volunteer told me that I like it. Now fewer people are asking where to get toys, especially the visitors. And also, a new volunteer told me that this is a sweet idea because it really helped us to organize which toys we can use to play with the cats. But this idea needs continuing maintenance because cats' preference may change from time to time. And after applying the nudge approach to design the placement of cat toys, now volunteers get to know the cats, and the human-cats interaction can be improved, which has led to the potential rehoming of cats. And for the final outcome, now the task list is placed in different corners in the shelter according to the tasks. I call it the walking manual. And due to time constraint, I didn't create a final tangible design outcome for the cat interaction idea bank, but this idea's ideal outcome and focus is to improve the interaction between volunteers and cats. And from the reaction of volunteers, visitors, and cats, it proves that this is working. But again, I will keep figuring out how to refine this as I'm still a volunteer at Cats Help. To summarize, apart from being a volunteer at Cats Help, my role in this project is like a facilitator. I try to bridge the gap between volunteers and the communication system. And by redesigning the manual, interaction between volunteers and the organization is improved. Now volunteers, they don't need to waste time on figuring out what to do or how to do. And the interaction between volunteers and cats are also fostered. From this project, I also learned that to initiate some change, we can start with something small that can integrate in our lives so that the momentum of change can last longer. It also demonstrated that even without the use of technology and with very limited costs, with a design approach, it's possible to solve the underlying problem within an organization. Last but not least, just now most of the comments that we heard are from human. But cats is also one of the most important stakeholders in this project. What is their feedback on this project? Let's see what Adele from Cats Help say about the changes in the last few months.
Hello, my name is Adele. I'm 10 years old. I've been living in Cats Help for a few months. Humans always say we're very chill, with no work, no school, just meow meow. This is not true at all. It's because we need a lot of energy to supervise humans. Sometimes they're not doing their jobs well. For example, they don't change the water for us, or leaving us to sleep with blankets with the smell of pee. Are you serious, human? But recently, I found that humans are improving. The water tastes better. The beds are less smelly. Most importantly, we now have more playtime. These toys are super fun and exactly what we love to play with. I'm impressed by how smart humans are now. It's like they read our minds. Good job, humans. Keep it up. Cats Help has been like a cozy cat hotel, but I think I'm ready to check out with a human of my own.
Thank you.